Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Today we're going to be going over SOS Inventory, and it's being presented by DJS Digital, and I'll be your host today, David Singletary. I am the CEO of DJS Digital. I have my BS in accounting from Rutgers University, and we are an independent consulting firm. Some of the services that we offer: software and vendor selection, project management and ERP implementation, IT managed services, business process improvements. We also do QuickBooks sales, reporting, and analytics. My contact information, our website is below. So what is SOS Inventory? SOS Inventory was an inventory management system, is an inventory management system that was made specifically for QuickBooks Online. Some of the features include purchasing, inventory, fulfillment, sales, and manufacturing. And some of the integrations, as you can see, with QuickBooks, ShipStation, EPS, PayPal, BigCommerce, Shopify, and some others. As being on this call today, anyone attending will receive a 20% discount if you decide to move forward with SOS Inventory, and also a discount on any implementation services with DJS Digital. So let's get started with the actual demonstration. So I'm going to move over to my account here. And this is what the screen looks like for SOS Inventory. The first screen you'll see here is your dashboard. On the screen, I can set up what I want to see on the screen. So for example, I'm seeing open sales orders, lines to ship, lines ready for invoice, open purchase orders, open work orders, and transactions to send to QuickBooks Online. With these checkboxes below here, I can decide what I want to see on here. So for example, if I don't want to see work orders, I can just uncheck it, hit update dashboard, and you can see that it's removed from the screen. So that's your dashboard. The next thing I want to show is the calendar. This calendar, just like what we saw with the dashboard, you can decide what you want to see on the dashboard. So as you can see, I'm looking at a monthly view. I see that I have a sales order that's due today, sales order that's yesterday, a sales order that's due today, a purchase order that's due in, and these are all determined by the checkboxes here. I can do a monthly view, I can do a weekly view, I can do a daily view, or I could just do a list and it'll show you everything by day. I'm just going to choose the weekly view so I can see what's going on for the week. Next, we have purchasing. I'm going to go through some of the options in the purchasing module. So first, what I'm going to do is create a product for you so you can see what it looks like. So I'm just going to go under inventory actually and create a product so you can see that first. So once I click on this option, you'll see all the different items that are in the system. And if we create a new item, I'm just going to hit add new. And I can create a new product. I'm going to create a table, so I'm just going to call it table 3. Any description that you want to put, you can type it right in this area. The type is going to be inventory type. if there's any variance, so for example, if it comes in different color, sizes, or versions, you could do that. Categories, you can create your own different categories. So for example, I have office furniture, so I can run reports based upon that category. I'll set a selling price. And you can also do pricing by customer, but we can talk about that a little bit later. If you wanted to see, to prevent people from selling below the sales price, you can put a minimum here. You can also do zero tracking or lot tracking. I have some examples that we'll go over a little bit later. You also have your account numbers. These get tied directly to QuickBooks. So you can get down to the SKU level or product level for your accounting. SOS has the ability to do barcoding, so you can add barcoding, barcode numbers here. You want to keep track of warranties. If they're SKUs that are separate than the item number, when you're ordering from a manufacturer, you can put that in there as well. So T123 is the SKU number. You can add pictures. So if I wanted to find a picture of a table, I can add a picture of the table. Any descriptions that you want to add to the purchase order could be added here, along with the costs. If there's a preferred vendor, you can select that here. And you have vendor part, customer part numbers as well. If you needed to keep track of a default location or bin within a warehouse, you can do that here. You have reorder points, which we'll talk about later, but you can set reorder points and max stock levels. You also add lead times. So that's all part of the reordering process. And you want to flag it so that it syncs with QuickBooks. You can determine if it's taxable. If there's a commission, you can add that as well. So those are the basics of setting up a product. Hit save and close. So next I'm going to go and actually create a purchase order. So go over to purchasing and go over to purchase order. So this screen is going to be similar to all the screens that you'll see. They all have the same format, it's a grid. You can select this option here and add different fields or columns to the grid. To create a purchase order, I'm just going to click on Add New. And I'm going to select my vendor. And all the information that you would put in the vendor file will show up here. Then here I can come in and select my item. And the quantity. The price comes automatically from the product file, so there's no need to change it unless you have to make a change. And you can determine if you want the system to update the cost to the product file or if it's just for this one particular order. You can set an expected date, and you can also add expected ship date. You can run reports based upon that. All the fields here are optional, and if there's fields here that you don't see, you can add custom fields. So that's all the information that we need. I'm just going to hit save and close. And then you will see the purchase order right there. So before we receive it, I just want to go back to the item list. And you'll be able to see the product that I created, which is the table. And I added a column on here for on purchase orders. You can see that there are 10 on purchase orders. And right now there's none in stock. Once I receive that purchase order, which I'll just go back to the purchase order and hit receive from the drop down. And here I can select the warehouse. I'm going to receive it to warehouse 88. And warehouse 88 has bin locations. So I will be able to select a bin. And everything else is the same. So what happens at this point is I can say I want to create a bill in QuickBooks. So it defaults to bill, so I'm not going to make any changes. And what that will do, it will create a bill in QuickBooks for this receipt. So once I hit save and close, it's no longer on this list because it's closed. And if I go back to the inventory and the items, you will now see that there are 10 pieces on hand and available. So what that does is it created a bill that's sitting in SOS. In order to move it to QuickBooks, we need to either A, set it that it syncs on a certain frequency. So maybe you want to do it once a day, every 30 minutes. You determine what your frequency is. Or if you need it right away, you can just click on this checkbox here. This is your sync with QuickBooks. Now, if you wanted to see what's being sent, you can hit this preview sync button. This will show everything that's about to be sent over to QuickBooks. So you can see we added an item, we added a bill, and a purchase order. So I'm just going to hit sync now. And it'll just take a couple seconds to send over to QuickBooks. So I'll hop over to QuickBooks. And I'm going to go under expenses. And we see we have bill number, this bill for PO 1006, which is what we just created. I click on the bill. You see it's for inventory for that table, and it's $4,000. So once it's in QuickBooks, you just schedule for the payment. We'll hop back over to SOS inventory, and let's talk about sales. So now that we have inventory, now we can place an order for a customer and ship it out to them. The customers that are in SOS are synced over to QuickBooks, so they're the same in both places. When you create a customer in one, it can automatically be synced into the other, and that is an option, but I like to keep them in sync. You have the ability to create estimates, sales orders, invoices, and sales receipts. I'm just going to create a sales order. So as you can see, the screens look the same. Same functionality, same options. You can choose different columns. You can also export data to Excel with this option over here. So what I'm going to do is click Add New. And it should load up the sales order. So what I'll do here is select my customer. All the information from the customer comes from the customer file. I'll select my location. I'm going to search for my table that I received. And I'm going to order one table. So again here, you can add different fields down here. These aren't all required, but for example, if there's a sales rep, I can add the sales rep so I can keep track of commissions and sales. You can create channels, see where the product or sales are coming from. Departments, these departments sync to the departments in QuickBooks. So in this example, I'm just going to sell one table. Now, if the customer has their email address, you can just hit save and send, and it'll send the invoice directly to the customer. In this case, I'm just going to hit save and close. And now you see I have my sales order. If I go back to the dashboard, you'll see now there's 3 open sales orders. Before there were 2. When I click on it, it brings me to an open sales report. So if I want to see details of sales orders, I can view that there. Okay, so now that I have the sales order, you would do your normal process as far as when it's scheduled for delivery. In SOS, you have the option of printing a pick list or just sending it over to shipment. So when you create a shipment, the shipment actually removes it from inventory. Where the pick ticket is just sending it to the pickers to pick it, and then you would still have to print go to create shipment. So in this case, I'm just going to go to create shipment. So here brings up all the information from the sales order. It lets you know which bin it's coming out of, the quantity that's going to be shipped, and the sales order that's associated with. So I'm just going to hit save and close. And if you remember, we had 10 on hand. So now if I go back to my inventory item, we'll see that the table now has 9 because we just shipped it. Now, the next step is normally to invoice, and that could be done individually or manually by coming over to sales and invoice. But I've set it up so that it happens automatically. So in SOS, there are these AOP rules. It basically is automatic processing. So what that does, it allows you to create different transactions or actions based upon certain criteria. So in my case, I created auto shipment. If I edit this, you'll see that when a shipment is created, I want the system to do this. In this case, create a new transaction, which is an invoice. So that saves you some steps. It's not mandatory. It's just a nice feature to have so that it saves your people from having to do multiple steps. All right, so now that I create that shipment and it created an invoice, I'm going to go over to the sync with QuickBooks and click on Preview Sync, and you'll see that there's an invoice. And you'll see that there's a journal entry for the actual movement of the inventory. I'm just going to click on Sync Now, and that should move that over to QuickBooks. I'm going to hop over onto the QuickBooks side. I'm going to go under Sales, and we'll see we have an open invoice for $200 for the table. I just click on it, you'll see that it has that information in QuickBooks. So everything that was created over in SOS gets sent over to QuickBooks. All right, so that's the process of ordering a purchase order, receiving a purchase order, creating a sales order, a shipment, and an invoice. Very simple. The next step I'm going to discuss is a build process. And this is for people that do manufacturing. So if you're creating product using raw materials, you would use this functionality. So I've created a product called finished goods or finished product, and it has a bill of materials. And the bill of materials has two parts to it. So you can have, if you're building a chair, if you have different parts, if you're creating food and you have different ingredients, those could be the different parts, all part of your bill of materials, and they each can have their own costs. And basically what the system will do is when you create that finished product, it moves the value from, in my case, raw materials into finished goods or inventory. So let's see how that works. So this product, finished product, there's currently 2 on hand, as you can see, and it has these parts, part 1 and part 2. You can see there's a quantity of 5. So I'm going to go and do a build. So I'm going to come over here. So this is where the bill of materials are, which I showed you. When I want to actually create the build, I'm going to go over to production and click on build. Same screen, everything looks the same. I'm going to click add new, and this time it's going to be a new build. It asks for the warehouse. It's going to be in this warehouse, date and time, and the item. So the item is F1. You can see that I have 2 on hand. But I'm going to pick, I want it to be put in this bin, which is bin 1. And since we created the bill of materials, the system automatically knows the input. So if I hit update input, it shows the items that go into this product. It shows you how many are in hand. It shows you how many are used per bill. In this case, 1 of each. But if it were 2 of part 2 and 3 of part 1, that would be there. It will never let you build more than you have on stock. So I'm just going to build 1. Here I'm going to say 1. And the work center is important. So the work center determines what the GL effect would be. So in this case, I have a work in process, which points to my GL work in process. So if I'm building and I'm taking materials, but I haven't finished the work, I can have it sit in this work center called work in process. And I have it so that when I save this, it takes the value out of my account called raw materials and moves it to work in process. And then when I actually finish building the product, it moves into this finished goods area. And this finished goods takes the value out of, in this case, work in process and moves it to inventory as a final product. This work center process is optional. You don't have to add a work in process, but finished goods is a requirement. Finished goods is tied, is hard coded in the system for the completion of the build. So I'm just going to hit save and close. I'm going to put your total to build. It's looking for a bin. So since it's a warehouse that is tracked, it's asking for where these pieces are coming from. In this case, bin 1. Okay, you have your build. So now if I go to my inventory and items, you'll see instead of 2, now there's 3 in stock, and parts 1 and 2 have been reduced by 1. Okay, so next, let's take a look at some reports. So SOS has many reports, and they keep adding new reports, which is good. They're broken up to different areas: purchasing, inventory, sales, fulfillment, production, accounting, rentals, and miscellaneous. So SOS also handles rentals, so if that's something that you need to do, you can add that into your workflow as well. Let's take a look at some reports. So you can customize reports. So when you customize a report, it'll show up in this section. You can add your favorites. So if there's reports that you always use, you can just add it here. And you also have what's called quick links. And these quick links is just another way of getting to reports that you use most frequently without having to go to the reports menu. So let's take a look at a report here. Let's look at the sales by item summary. So this is the options for the report. You can just hit display report and it'll show you just the stock report. You can save it to Excel or a CSV file. You can also send it in an email. This is how you add it to your favorites. And once you customize your report, you can save it as a customized report. You can also schedule this report. So if you want to send it out daily, once a week at 2 o'clock, you can set it up to do that. You have filters. So if you just wanted to run a report just on a particular category, you can. If you want it for a specific vendor, you can. Or if you're looking for a specific item, you can. Other options here, you can do groupings. You can add groupings by category, by vendor. You can add a heading, sales, item, footer, warehouse, sales. If you want to do a to and from date on the report, you can do that. The column, so you can add additional fields on the report or columns. So for example, if I want to add the category that it's in, the sales price, and let's say the bin that it came from, I can add it there as well. I'm going to add a SKU just in case there's a SKU number. There's a date range, so if you want to do some canned date ranges, so if you just do yesterday, today, last week, last quarter, this year, 60 days ago, 90 days ago, those are all preset, or you can just click on that calendar icon. So I'm just going to do it for the beginning of the month. And I'm just going to hit display report. Here you go, sales by item, which is the heading. I did the from and to dates, and these are the different items. Description, category, sales price, SKU, unit ships, percent, total units shipped, the revenue, which is percentage of revenue, my COGS, percentage, total COGS, profit, and profit percent. So if you like the way this is set up, you can do this as save customization, and this is my sales item. And I'll put my initials so that I know it's my report. So every time that you want to run that report, you could just run it with that name. Okay, and also, like I mentioned, you can send this to Excel if you wanted to. So if I go back to reports, you'll be able to see that it's up here, sales by item report. Let's take a look at the reorder report, which I have in my favorites. This report will help you with your reordering. So one of the benefits of having a system like this is let the system do some of the grunt work for you, some of the heavy lifting for you, things that you don't have to worry about. So if you set minimums and maximums or reorder points in the system, let the system worry about that and tell you what you should order versus you having to do additional research to find out what to order. So if I just hit display report, it's going to show items that have fallen below my reorder point. So in this case, this product, this B1, there's 4 available, but I want to always have 5 on hand. So I need 1. Same for this medical supplies. I need to reorder 5 because there's none on hand. So what you can do with this is you can build a list, which is this add to reorder list, or you can just create a purchase order based upon this list. So if I create generate POs, first I select the items, hit generate POs. What that's going to do is create a purchase order for the vendor for these specific items. So you see here, generate a purchase order generated by Sos Inventory. If I take a look at this purchase order, I do it as a quick view. This is one of the items that I created before, and what it did, it automatically ordered those items. Now, in order for that to work, the products need to have a vendor associated with them. So if I go to my items, my B1, I can see that I don't have a preferred vendor, so it doesn't know how to order it. So now, if I go back to my reports, I have that B1 product. I'm going to select it and hit generate purchase orders. And what that should do is create a purchase order right here. I hit this quick view, and you'll see that it created the purchase order for the one item for that B1 product. Okay, the other topic, there's a lot of settings in the system, and you can set it up many different ways. But one of the things that's helpful is the inventory method. So there's 3 methods. There's the weighted average, FIFO, and LIFO. So you can set it up either way. So in general, what you want to do with the integration between QuickBooks and SOS is determine what the workflow is. Typically, you would see all the transactions being generated out of SOS and moved over to QuickBooks. So what does that mean? That means sales orders get generated in SOS, purchase orders get generated in SOS. So you don't have to worry about doing those transactions in QuickBooks. It also creates a separation of duties. So if you have, let's say, a warehouse manager, you don't want him doing anything in QuickBooks. So all they would do is work in the SOS system, because everything that they do, their transactions, if it has an accounting effect, that will move over to QuickBooks, which they wouldn't have any access to. Any changes that they make in SOS will be reflected over in the system in QuickBooks, so that you don't have to worry about it. Just to go over a couple other options on the screen. Underneath your company name, this is how you can import data, export data. You have your company settings, your user settings, so you can set up different security. You can have different alerts. This is where I set up your sales channels, and I mentioned custom fields. So if I go in custom field, and I want to add a new custom field, and let's say I want to know something about the customer on a sales order. Maybe it's a special order. Maybe I want to keep track of special order sales orders. I'm going to click here, and it's going to be a checkbox. So I can run a report on all special order sales orders. I hit save and close. So next time I go to a sales order and hit add new, you see there's now a checkbox here. And once it's there, I can just add it on reports so that I can then see what my special order sales orders are. And that's, in a nutshell, the basics of SOS Inventory. Obviously, there's a lot more functionality, like I mentioned. You can do returns, you can do rentals, you can do work orders, you can do different processes, jobs that can also connect with QuickBooks. You can do transactions by entering it here on the left. So if you're familiar with QuickBooks, it does the same type of thing. Or there's this plus button, and you can create new sales orders, invoices, etc., just like you would in QuickBooks. You can print from here. So in this case, I can print whatever's on the screen. In this case, it's just a listing of my sales orders. And that's pretty much the gist of it. Pricing for SOS, they have 3 different levels. There's a companion, which is $39.95. It has, your sales orders, assemblies, integration with QuickBooks, and it's 2 users included. Any additional users is $15 each. You have the Plus, which is the most popular. It adds additional functionality like serial tracking, lot tracking, barcoding. There's 3 users included. And then they have the highest, or the top of the line, which is the Pro. And that's $119.95. It has job costing, the advanced manufacturing. You could do a customer portal. There's 5 users included. And again, it's $15 additional for any additional users. So if you have any questions about the functionality of SOS, you're looking to purchase it for your customers, remember, if you because you're on the call today, you'll get 20% off. There'll be a survey at the end of the session, and you can just reference that you have, do you want more information or you're looking to implement, and then you just fill out that information there, and then someone will reach out to you to answer any other question that you may have. So that's all we have for today. Again, I'll show you my contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Website is djs-digital.com, and I'm David Singletary. My email and phone number are on the screen. Thank you very much for attending today.